A very warm welcome, dear brothers and sisters, to the Redemptorist Friendship Circle, a podcast by the Redemptorist community of the Vice Province of Malaysia and Singapore. In this podcast, we try to talk about everything Redemptorist. We try to introduce you to the Redemptorists around the world and try to talk about interesting and current topics in and around the Catholic Church. I am Terence, a Redemptorist priest serving in Novena Church here in Singapore, and I'm one of the hosts of this podcast.
Hi everyone, my name is Gerard. I'm also a Redemptorist from the Vice Province of Malaysia in Singapore. I live in the Nulla Road community, which is the formation house of our Vice Province. It's lovely to be here with all of you. Thanks for joining us.
All right, so Gerard, you have been traveling the world a little bit and you have come back, but still we have been very busy. So, what have been keeping you busy lately?
Well, I've been busy with just the normal things that go on all the time at Novena Church. So we've got a few initiatives going on. Anthony was ordained as a deacon
Oh,
maybe
yes.
2-3 weeks ago now, I suppose. And so there was some help needed to organize that, and of course the usual duties at Novena Church as well. And here at the Nala Road community, we've made some new initiatives to reach out to people who might be interested in our vocation. So we've
Okay.
put out some
Yeah.
some new stuff to engage people who might be thinking about our life.
All right. Yeah, it's definitely very good to have a new deacon in our midst. It's a bit of getting used to have a deacon serving during Mass, but it's definitely a very welcome presence. I'm very happy, and hopefully, just in a few months' time, we will have a new priest. Okay, so I'm looking forward to his ordination. Yeah. So beyond that, beyond our Redemptorist community, I think around the world there has also been a lot of things that is going on with regards to the Catholic faith. Uh, Here in Singapore, I think a lot of preparations are ongoing to welcome the Pope here, and also. I think the church has been on the news lately, especially with the Olympics in Paris. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
any comments?
No.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Very good answer.
Good
Actually, I
answer.
think that could be a good podcast episode. In fact, I was just toying with a few of our guys here. We say maybe we should have an episode to discuss about that whole issue and to try to see things from different perspective. And in fact, as what we have said in the introduction, this podcast is also meant for us to talk about interesting and current topics in and around the Catholic Church. And I'm very sure this um, belongs to one of these interesting topics.
Sure.
But actually, we were hoping to use this episode to discuss about some theological topics, but unfortunately, I think this is a time where most of us are all very busy. We are very much involved in our respective areas of work, and I couldn't quite coordinate all the right people to come and have a geological discussion. But very hopefully, in the next episode or a very near future, we can have an episode to talk about something more interesting with regards to our faith and theology. But for this particular episode, I've also managed to invite two very dear confreres for me. They are actually the confreres that is currently working in Belgium. I had the wonderful opportunity to get to know them and to really be with them for a while when I was studying over there in Belgium. And I'm very happy to actually invite them to be part of this podcast recording. Yeah. So maybe this is going to be quite a lengthy podcast. So without further ado, we can just go straight into the
Why not?
podcast. But as our listener would have already known, we have already pre-recorded the interview. But I think there was a bit of a technical glitch in the recording itself. So the front part of the recording somehow didn't get properly recorded. So you will see us very abruptly going into the conversation. So over here, I'm just apologizing to all the listeners. But this,
Okay.
I promise you, is going to be a very interesting episode. So shall
You
we
won't miss
just
anything. So it'll be very
go
interesting
straight
discussion.
to it? All right. So let's listen to our podcast. In Belgium, they are Father Ives and Father Andreas. Woohoo! Wait, huh?
Hello.
I'm still trying to figure out how to do this technical stuff. Anyway, so welcome, Eve and Andreas. Just a very brief introduction. Uh, both Father Andreas and Father Eve, they are from the province of St. Clement, which includes northern Germany, Netherlands, Belgium, and Switzerland. And Father Eve is currently the director of Clemenspor, our Redemptorist Center in Ghent, Belgium. And Father Andreas Krahnen is his faithful partner, and he's originally from Germany, but he was sent to serve in Belgium 18 years ago. So he has been in Belgium
Oh,
for 18 years serving. And he's also helping out in one of the parish there in the diocese. Okay, so before we move on to something more serious, perhaps I can just invite both Father Ives de May and Father Andreas. Maybe can you all just share with us very briefly your vocation story? How did you all get to know the Redemptorists, and how do you all decided to really dedicate your life to be a Redemptorist? So, who would like to start?
Let
I'll
me
give
start. Yeah.
Andreas the first place. He's
Okay,
the
all
oldest
right.
of the two of us.
I grew up in Germany in the Ruhr Valley in the town of Bochum, and I was busy in my parish as a teenager with youth groups. So
Mhm.
it's rather classical from it's the 70s. So I grew up there, and then we had in the year 1977. I was 17 years old. We had a parish mission from the Redemptorists.
Mhm.
I still remember the two fathers who came to us, and that intrigued me because I played with the thought of becoming a priest, but I didn't want to live alone as my parish priest did. He was a lovely man, and I loved him, but I couldn't see myself alone in a parish house. And when I met the Redemptorist, the first thing I saw, they did everything together as a team. And that was I think the initiation of becoming a Redemptorist, that they did everything together. And after the mission, they invited me in different monasteries, in the youth work. The youth house in Kirchhellen was the old youth house in Kirchhellen was just started, and the following years I often went on weekends to the Redemptorist, and during the last 3 years of my school, they're becoming more and more the idea of becoming a Redemptorist. And after school, I don't know in the English system is I think after before the year before I get to the university, I decided to become a Redemptorist in the age of
Okay.
18.
Oh wow, that's so. In what year did you get ordained?
Ordained 86.
1986. So
mm.
okay,
No.
suddenly my brain's
Oh
not
yeah,
working.
yes,
But then,
86. Yeah, yeah.
okay, all right,
Yeah.
all right.
But
So
thanks, Father Andreas, for that because so many parts of your story resonate with mine. It's almost like as if I'm listening to my own vocation story as well. Even the ages and all that are so similar.
were you ordained
Thank you
in
for that.
86 also, Gerard?
No, I was still in school. Yeah.
Okay, all
But
right.
when I was 17, I attended the ordination of a relative, and that sort of set me on the path, and very much that about looking for a community, always wanting to be with a group and working together.
Hmm. So
Yeah,
Andreas,
and I attended.
have you enjoyed your life as a Redemptorist all this while? Any
Oh
regrets?
yes. No, I don't have regret.
No.
Not everything was good, of course,
Okay.
but I've never regretted to be a Redemptorist. And the initial thing that lived through my whole Redemptorist story, to live especially as a team and in a community and not alone. And now I'm working in a parish. I'm glad that I'm living in a monastery, because I see the classical parish priests. It's, I think, not a good idea to live alone in a big house. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. All right, so maybe we just shine the spotlight now over to Eve. Eve, can you just share with us then your own experience
And
as
I have
being
to
a
say that
Redemptorist?
I had the same intuition as Father Andreas's intuition. I did not want to be a priest all by myself, and but I didn't know the Redemptorists. So, in fact, as a young boy, my parents joined the charismatic renewal community, and that was my background. And I thrived in it. I myself became very involved in youth ministry as a layperson, did my studies. I wanted to become a journalist, in fact, and not just to be a journalist, but that was my ministry. I saw it as a ministry to be in the world and to spread the good news. But then, really, as a political or whatever journalist, so I studied law as a preparation for journalism, and but in the meantime, it became clear that God wanted me to be a priest, which was not my first idea at all. But bit by bit, I saw that this was God's will, and I surrendered to it. And then I had to search for a way to be a priest. And my first idea was to be a parish priest. But talking with the diocese, they could not guarantee me that I would be able to live in a community and to do ministry in a community. And I had seen already what was starting to happen, and what at this moment is really very devastating for our church. That is that priests are completely alone. They have to solve all kind of problems, and then live by themselves. And so there was one priest I knew, and he was a Redemptorist. So he said, "Yeah, maybe you can become a Redemptorist." I had no idea who the Redemptorists were, but I just joined them because I had already started taking classes of theology. So I had to hurry, and I continued to take the classes in a non-Redemptorist area, but just joined the Redemptorist, did my novitiate in Dundalk, Ireland, and I knew I was home and I was at the right place, and that I was first called to be a religious, not first called to be a priest, but to be a religious. Um, and so from there, as there were no other students here in Belgium. In fact, when I joined the Redemptorist, the superior at the time, he said, "I'm sorry, but I cannot offer you community life, and I cannot offer you a ministry, because we in Belgium here, we're finished, we're done." And I said, "No problem, because there would be a kind of a construction that I could do this in conjunction with that charismatic community of laypersons." So that was the idea officially. But bit by bit, I discovered there is more to the Redemptorists than just the Belgian Redemptorists. But that's what has changed quite a lot in my life. But to finish off, before my ordination, I'm ordained in 2000 at the age of 29. And I did my studies at the University of Leuven without any seminarians around me, or whatever good university I know.
Yeah.
But so I only had an academic formation. I was just sitting there among lay students, and I was not in touch with other young Redemptorists, or there was no other formation than just an academic formation. There was a lot of things for me to find out after my ordination, which was good.
Yeah. So perhaps just for the benefit of the listeners here in Malaysia and Singapore, Father Eve and Father Andreas, they are in a community. And I think it, in fact, is the only active community for the Redemptorists right now over in Belgium, in Ghent. But I believe in the past, this was really not the reality. And in fact, it was a very different reality. I actually took a subject when I was studying in Leuven, in the same university as Eve was. I studied there, and I took this subject called mission history. And the professor, of course, is a Belgian, and so he focused a fair bit on the missionary congregations in Belgium. Now, of course, the first one he mentioned very much about the CICM, the Congregation of the Immaculate Heart of Mary. But beyond that, he actually focused quite a fair bit on the Redemptorist. So the Redemptorist was quite prominently featured, and especially with their work in Africa. So correct me if I'm wrong. During the heydays of the Redemptorists in Belgium, we had as many as perhaps 300 members. Is that correct? Or do we have more or less at our best moments?
I have no idea. I did not figure it out, but yeah, it can be right, because when I joined the Redemptorists, and that's a few decades after the top days of the Redemptorists in Belgium, there were still more than 100 or 150 Redemptorists in Belgium.
Okay.
So 300 would not be an exaggeration for such a small
Okay.
country.
And there are
So
two provinces, yeah, the West Province, French speaking, and the Flemish
Yeah,
province.
that's also some history, because in fact, the Redemptorists arrived in Belgium in 1832 already. So in 1961, they split into two sections, the North and the South, as we have different languages and different
mhm,
cultures. So, and I joined in a little bit before 2000. I mean, I've never been in contact with the south of Belgium, but so this was my reality. When I spoke about more than 100 Redemptorists, I'm speaking in the northern part of Belgium only.
okay.
But I'm also glad to hear, Terence, that your professor mentioned the Redemptorists,
Oh
because
yeah,
at this
he
moment,
loved the
the
Redemptorists.
Redemptorists are not very well known for the
Oh
last
really?
decades. So people would know of Franciscans and Jesuits, and even the CICM.
Mhm,
Um, which we call here Schutisten, because they were originated from a small town near Brussels. But so the Redemptorists were not known for the last decades. In fact, when I joined them, hardly anybody knew and could pronounce the word Redemptorist. So that was quite funny. I was
okay.
special.
All right.
Maybe I can
S-
say a little bit more about those days, or
yes. Yeah. Let us know, like, what were the pastoral work or the ministry that the Redemptorists were involved in the days where we were plentiful.
Well, at first they were parish missionaries, and so when people think about missions and parish missions, missions, they don't think about parish missions. That's something that's quite unknown here in Belgium. But in those days, the Redemptorists were the parish missionaries, and I read that in the years 1930, they almost visited every parish in Flanders, in the northern part of Belgium.
Wow.
And they were very famous for doing so. You can still
Mm-hmm.
see it whenever the icon of Our Lady of Perpetual Help is in the church. It means the Redemptorists have been there.
Mm-hmm.
And they were also very important at the time, because through their catechesis, they were renewing the church in a certain way, and for that moment, so they were very renowned. Um, but then there were also the missions outside Belgium, and that's from the beginning. In fact, when the Redemptorists arrived in Belgium, that was 1832, as I said. That's 1 year after Belgium became an independent country, 2 years after Belgium became independent, and 1 year after we had our constitution, which was the first constitution in Europe that guaranteed religious freedom. And that was very
Okay.
important. Maybe you know Saint Clement Hofbauer and so on. He was
Mm-hmm.
looking to find a place where he could stay, but all the time he was being chased away by Napoleon and by the emperor in Austria and so on and so forth. And so then finally they heard there is a new country now. It's called Belgium, and you are free to worship God and to start new religious congregations and so on. And so Passera was one of the first who arrived in Belgium back then. And from there, Belgium has been very active, sending out missionaries all around to the
Mm-hmm.
UK, Ireland, the US, to the Caribbean islands, the West Indies as they're called. And then also in the 20th century, as you spoke about Africa, especially Congo and one part of Congo in 1800, 1990 to be exact. And that was well known. At that time, it was a colony of the King of Belgium, and later it became a colony of Belgium. So in our Belgian history, we have a lot of ties and connections and links with Congo.
Yeah.
And hundreds of Redemptorists have been sent to Africa
Mm.
and did good work. Because as you spoke about the history of the missions, I think the Redemptorists try to be very close to the people, not to be among the, to do with the oppressor, to deal, so to be
Yeah.
really at their own way and to focus on inviting people to come to know Jesus. And at that
Okay.
time, there was also a kind of a problem in Congo. There was Protestant missionaries, there were the Catholic missionaries, and there was also Kibangists, which was a kind of their own Congolese version of Christianity. And the Redemptorists, with a lot of patience and kindness, they just they just did their job, formed the people, especially catechists. They were very strong in forming catechists and going into the jungle, into the small villages, and helping the people to live in their own lives and in their own culture the Christian life. I think we can be proud of the way the Redemptorists did a mission over there.
Okay.
And
So
then
are
to
there
finish,
still?
yeah,
Yeah. Sorry. No, I'm just wondering, are there still any Belgians in any of these mission areas?
no, it's about 10 years ago. Well, yeah, so in Congo, it's about 10 years ago that the last Belgian confrere retreated. Congo is still, so the vice province of Congo is still a vice province, and there is still a lot of contact between the two of us, but we have no Belgian Redemptorist there anymore. But there
Okay.
is at this moment still one Belgian Redemptorist in Baghdad. He is
Oh.
89 years old and
Okay.
he is not retiring. He's working. He is a theology professor. In fact, all priests of Iraq have been formed by Belgian Redemptorists. Originally, there were three of them. They joined Baghdad. They started the mission in 1952, Lebanon, Baghdad. And until today, our confrere there at the age of 89 is teaching at an academic level, is renewing his courses. Now he uses, is filming, making videos, all kind of things. And
Wow.
he is a specialist in Iraqi culture and in biblical sciences. And but we don't have that. So we have one missionary abroad, um, but it's not yet like it used to
Okay.
be.
So there's really a lot of things that we can be proud of in terms of the works of all the Redemptorists from Belgium. Uh,
Mm.
is there any defining reason that actually led to the decline of our numbers over there in Belgium?
What my conference used to say, those who were around at the time, because the decline started in the 60s, early 60s, 1960s, so that's 70 years ago now, 60 years ago now. Um, so the decline started in the 1960s, and the conference told me it's all because of television and a certain soap series, and the people preferred to stay at home and watch that series instead of coming to the mission, because the parish missions used to be also something very fun. There was something happening, at least in these small and rural places, and people got together and they had something to talk about, and there was excitement and so on. But then television could bring more excitement and fun to the people than our conference could. So they say that this was the start of the decline. Of course, it's at the same moment that there was a lot of things happening in the church, and many people started to think and to have questions about why they were Catholic in a traditional way. And so I think that we as Redemptorists at that time were not able to answer the questions of the people. And so that's the moment that the parish mission work, the ministry of parish missions, uh, just collapsed in 1 year time. We have a few confreres who have tried to do some renewal parish missions, and they tried to answer the questions of the people. But so there was only two or three of them who continued to do so in the 70s and the 80s. Um, and all the other confreres, they were just asked to find something to do. Many of them became a parish priest or went teaching into schools or whatever, but not, and that's a pity thing, not as a community. There was no Redemptorist ministry anymore. There was a Redemptorist doing something that other people were also doing, but you could not see a community. You could not be invited to join a community. There was nothing that was being done as a community, and also community life suffered from it. When I joined in 94, 95, community life was almost finished. People were just all living by themselves. So I think that is what that is are very important things to learn from.
Wow,
Okay.
that's very powerful to hear that, Eve. Yeah, that's really huge. You mentioned the 1960s as well, and that was also the time of the Second Vatican Council.
Yeah.
And there were a number of Belgians who were very involved in the council and
Yeah.
were big figures like Cardinal Leo Sunens and the theologian Gerard Phillips, who was instrumental in writing Lumen Gentium. Um, but yet, the Belgian church had contributed so much to the change that happened in the church, while at the same time you are describing that the church was also declining
Yeah.
in Belgium at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even Cardinal
It's
Sunens. I just want to pick on Cardinal Sunens because he was our cardinal at the time, Archbishop in Belgium, and while he did great things in the Vatican Council and afterwards also around the world, he was not able to. To manage all the criticism in his own diocese, and we had the student rebellion at the time, and all of this, it was not an easy time. So he was a great prophet, but for the management tasks, that was not his quality. And I think it was just very difficult in Belgium at that time for anybody, because Belgium was such a huge Catholic country, and it was a tradition. It was traditional Catholicism, and so people were Catholic not out of choice or because they had thought about it, but just they followed the mainstream. And the moment that the mainstream starts to diverge and go in another direction, everybody followed. And it was not easy to change that. And I think that just the fact that we had been so strong was also the reason why we were not prepared to be Catholic in a culture with other ideas and things happening. Andreas, you
it's
want to say something?
interesting,
Yes.
perhaps, to see I'm originally from the Cologne province, northern Germany, and the history is quite different. The old form of parish mission collapsed during the Second Vatican II. But then in the 60s, a young priest, the young Redemptorist, formed a new team of parish missioners. And they started with completely new with the theology of the Vatican II. And when I joined the Redemptorist, I was the fruit of that development. So in the Cologne province, the old Cologne province, it was quite different. We had still monasteries and teams, so I was quite astonished when I came to Belgium to see that here was not the case. Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
So, maybe other than Andreas, we don't have much experience of living in this decade. And Andreas would have been a very young person at that time. But obviously, so much was going on at that time, isn't it? That's still impacting the church and the world until today. It really was a change of an epoch. And maybe there's something similar going on today as well.
yeah. So maybe we can move on then to hear a little bit from Andreas, since you have come from a place that the context was very different, and then you were for some reason being asked to come over to Belgium, and then you have this totally different kind of experience. Can you just share with us a little bit how was it like? What
The,
was your internal experience in being
yeah,
sent to this new place, and what were the
well,
high and low points of it?
yeah, the reason is very simple. The four provinces joined together as the Clemens province. And then the provincial asked, and I was 48 years, and I've done youth work in this special project in the youth monastery in Kichellen for almost 20 years. And I was getting the idea I'm growing too old for that kind of youth work. Not that the youth had problems with me, but it's rather other way around. And so the provincial Hermann and Winkel asked me, "Could you imagine to learn another language and work pastoral in a Dutch context? Flemish is Dutch." There is it's a bit difficult for people who are not accustomed with that, but Flemish is a form of Dutch. So I said I will try, but in my studies I was 1 year in Dublin, so that's where my English is coming from, and I experienced it's not as easy to learn another language if you're 48 as 18.
Of
The
course.
right age to learn a language is 18, not 50. And that was the most difficult thing in it. In the beginning, I didn't speak Dutch, though the languages German and Dutch are close. They're not the same, but even in some parts of Germany, the dialects are the same. But I didn't speak it, and I had to learn it from the scratch. And I discovered I was 1.5 year in the Netherlands, learning in Netherlands, and then I came to Ghent, and I discovered that the Flemish people are very sensitive to language, much more sensitive than Germans. If a German understand another, he wouldn't mind. But
whichever way they speak.
in Flanders, you have to speak right,
Yeah, the
because
pronunciation.
the pronunciation is right, and they admit, even after so many years, they can detect my
The accent.
accent.
German accent.
But you have to understand, to be Flemish is to speak Flemish. And that's quite different in Germany. In Germany, if you live in Germany, you are German. And of course, you
Okay.
speak German. There is no other discussion about that. But so that was the most difficult thing in the beginning, and and that was the idea for me to work in a parish. We have to think, if you want to have to learn the language properly, you have to be among the people. And then there is a second reason. It's almost as important as the first one. It's not alone the language you have to learn. It's the way people are doing things, and that's very different from the Germans. I didn't expect such a big difference in the beginning. For example, every decision in Belgium is made in a consensus from the parish council to the parliament. They talk as long as they have a consensus. It's quite annoying for a German. Consensus democracy. In the beginning, they had 2.5 years no parliament. The elections were much difficult. They talked for about 3 years until they had a new parliament. In Germany, it's quite different. In Germany, there is a decision, and then they made a concept, and then they decide we're doing that, and they expect from the loser that he are doing the things from the winner because it's the winner, and that's Germanic. The old Germanic tribe had that idea, and that's still in Germany. If you made a decision, it's done, and the others have to announce it. So that was quite difficult to understand, and I was. I'm glad that I could experience that in the parish. And uh, and the liturgy Belgian people do. They like to have a draaiboek. What is that in English? If a manuscript, they have they have they like to have a manuscript. And I met an African priest. He wrote about it also, but I can feel it. Therefore, I said improvisation is not part of the liturgy here, and I missed that, and I missed that also. And of course, I'm coming from another culture in music. Even in the German have another spiritual music than the Dutch people. In Dutch, they let sing. In German, they sing themselves. So here they have choirs and musicians who are standing in front of their organ and then sing. But in Germany, everybody sings. And the new songs in Germany, geistliche Lieder, spiritual songs. In German, it's a fusion of jazz, rock, and classic. And here in Dutch, it's nothing like that. So you have a little Bitter See and Osterhuis, and that's it. The spiritual music I grew up with is not known, and therefore I started to translate some of the songs I knew into Dutch to sing it.
Thank you, Andreas, for sharing all those experiences of moving to a new culture. Even though Belgium and Germany are almost neighboring
Oh
countries,
yeah,
but
yeah,
yet there's so many differences in
yeah.
how you look at church and how you look at culture and how you understand the society and the language. Yeah? It seems that Singapore and
Coincidentally,
Germany seems to have a few things in common.
you know, I'm actually writing a paper now to be presented in Leuven in September. So I hope that I'll get to see you all when I'm there in September. Basically on intercultural dialogue. And what I was trying to say actually in the paper is that uh, oftentimes we talk about culture like as if it's just one big thing, because there was a book that talks about the European Catholic culture. But then what I'm trying to say is that in fact, if you really look at it, there are so many cultures. So even like Germany and Belgium and France, they are neighboring countries. But if you just go into it, even within Belgium itself, or the different
Mm.
regions,
Yeah.
there are so many different little cultures, and we kind
Uh,
of need to
in,
be very aware of that.
in the
Yeah.
60s, the Redemptorists had their own band, and they made singles.
Oh, wow.
And you could buy them
Okay.
for 20 years. I have still the old thing, and they were very good. It's actually today. It's not the style of today. It's a spiritual beat music,
Okay.
but they were very good actually. And
Are they on
so
Spotify? Can you
uh,
find these musics on Spotify or like somewhere
and
online?
But that's a
I've still
vinyl,
the
huh?
old guitar
Oh,
from
wow.
Wow.
that.
Okay. Oh, wow.
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. And we'll
So,
link up afterwards to Andreas' blogs where you can listen to his music.
Oh yeah,
yes,
also. Yep.
exactly, and exactly.
And I
Yeah.
played myself in the followers of the original band. As a student, I played in the band too.
Oh, great. Okay. So maybe we have talked a little bit about history and a little about a difference in culture, and perhaps now we can just focus a little bit on what's happening at the present. Um it was a little bit of a silly thing for me. I was in Belgium for 2 years to study, but it seems like it was only the last few months that I realized that there was this community of Redemptorists over there in Ghent, and I reached out and I managed to visit Eve and Andreas, but it was so little time, and I would really wish that I could have got to know your community way earlier than that. But when I visited you all over there in Ghent, I realized that you all have formed a very nice, cozy little community over there at Clemensport. Uh, I had the privilege, invited by Eve, so thanks so much for your invitation to join you all for like a retreat and a little bit of a
Oh, nice.
relaxation. And I got to know the community a little bit. I thought it's a very wonderful little community, but perhaps if you can share with us a little bit about the current community that you have, and maybe a little bit about how Clemensport came to be, the whole center came to be. Yeah.
And what
Yeah,
does it mean, first of all? Yeah.
yeah,
What
yeah.
does Clemens for mean? Yeah.
Yeah, first of all, I want to start with the amazing opportunity we got in 2005 when 4 provinces joined together and were joined into a new province, St. Clemens province. And this was not just a new province, this was also a new start. And there was made a decision that we should get rid of old houses and old monasteries and old structures so as to be free for something new. And we, at that moment, like in Belgium, there were about 10 houses and everybody was trying to do something. And then we had also to find people to do the administration of it all, and the government and so on. And so the idea was get rid of the old things, make sure you that life for the older conference is fine, and focus on one new project, only one, and not an old one that gets refurbished, but a completely new. And so this, the idea of our conference back then, I was not involved in that at the moment, um, was to completely demolish the old monastery in Ghent that was located at a very good place, very close to the railway station, very good accessible and so on. And so to demolish the old buildings and to build something completely from scratch again. And that brought about quite a lot of new opportunities. And so we called it Clemensport, Clemens after our Saint Clemens Hofbauer, who was a city apostle. And we want to be city apostles. And port, well, if you go into the city of Ghent, you have different, it's port means gate. You have those different places of ancient times when there was a city gate going towards Brussels and a city gate towards Bruges. And so still now we have very many names that end with port as the gate to a certain place. And so we took that as something that is typically for the city we're part of. We want to be a part of the city. We're not missionaries who go into the city and try to get everybody in our boat, but we just are part of the fabric of the social life. We are citizens ourselves, so we brought those two names together, Saint Clement and the city of Ghent, Clemensport. And with the new building, we also got completely the freedom to start something new and also new ways of doing things. That's one thing that happened. But the other thing that happened is, and that's all over the place in our congregation, it's growing towards partnership in mission. And I think it's a pity because in Europe it sounds like now that we don't have religious priests and brothers anymore, no professed redemptorists, then we need to find second-hand redemptorists or something like that, which I don't want to see it as that. It's just something that is continuing in our church. We find out that all people are called, all people have their own vocation and mission. And so also lay people can be missionaries in the Redemptorist tradition. I'm very happy with this. And so
Okay.
that's what is happening at this moment here. Because I'm sorry, Terence, but you speak about the community. There's only two of us. That's you see us here. That's the whole
Okay.
community. That's the only active community in Belgium, in the Benelux, I have to say, almost. Um, but
And
we
they're
are,
lay
Yeah.
partners.
So I was referring also to the worshiping community,
yeah,
those that come and join in the
yeah.
worship. Yeah. So.
So even there, we start from scratch, and Corona
Mhm.
also helped because we completely had the time to start something new. And so there was no Sunday masses before, and we
Oh.
started just with a few people who had done an alpha course and who were interesting. In fact, the question came from the people. They said, where can we go to mass? Yeah, you can go to mass in the parishes. Yeah, they said, but we want to go to a place where we can continue to live a lively Christian life. And so we started with a group of 5 people for Sunday mass, and that grew until 20. At this moment it's 70, while in the parishes it's declining. And I'm not playing fun about this, but that's just a fact. And so, what is so special is that people enjoy each other, and it's not just coming from mass and having the sacraments, but there is also real community life and real fellowship, Christian fellowship, witnessing to one another. People who are just they are talking the gospel. They're not talking about the gospel, but the way they talk to each other is just sharing about what is happening in their own lives. So before mass, we can drink. We have a welcome. There is coffee and so on. After mass, there is more to drink, and people stay.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's more for an hour, more than an hour, and we
I,
enjoy
I
that
I
very
have
much.
to interject and mention this, especially to the Singapore listeners. Like one of the things that you all do when before or after mass is to drink, and you all brew your own beer. Uh, Clemens, I think, is it Saint
Clemens beer.
Clemens?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, yes.
Clemens beer. Yeah, I really liked it, and I was trying to find ways to figure out like how can we import that beer over here to Singapore. But apparently, like importing beer is a tough thing to do, but hopefully in the future, if you all ever get to come and visit, we have to make sure that all of you will bring a dozen of those St. Clements beer to allow the Singapore Catholics here to enjoy and taste. I think that is a very fine beer. Gerard is a beer lover,
Yes.
and I actually brought back one bottle for him. So yeah.
Thank you,
Okay.
Terence. I remember that. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry for interjecting. I just thought that that's very important for the people here to know. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so you have a church or a chapel inside your residence?
Yeah, so it's a completely new building. It's a whole site with different buildings, because we sold also parts of it so that we got some money to build a whole new thing, because we have to take care of the finances as well. It's not as it used to be. That's also quite a challenge for us. And so and one of the buildings an apartment block with 22 apartments, and so people are living there, and the two of us as well. We all have our own apartment as a Redemptorists, but we also have a common room. And our own apartment means that we were four originally. When somebody leaves or joins us, well, it's interchangeable. If not one of the Redemptorists living there, we can rent it to other people, and those other people can be enthusiastic partners in mission, can be just people who need a place to stay and get to know a little bit our life. And we also have people who are in needs, different needs, psychological need, or yeah, they have to find a new start in their life. And we also offer some of our apartments to those people. And it's really fun to be together with
Mm.
also with unchurched people. Probably you're used to that in Singapore, as yeah, not everybody is Catholic there, but we come from a Catholic church culture, and as a church, we still have to learn that we can learn a lot from other people as well, and by being together with people who ask questions, yeah, it's just fun. We can reflect about our own way of living and about our own way of witnessing. And that's also what is happening in the church. And so your question was whether we had a chapel or so. We have a second building. It's a very beautiful building, and there is conference rooms, and we make money out of the conference rooms again. But there is also a very beautiful modern huge chapel well, huge for 200 people. That's very big for
Big
us.
enough, yeah. Yeah.
But in such a way that people feel welcome and feel at home, and that it's not an awkward place as some older churches might be.
That is fascinating, Yves, and it's such a big shift, when the
Mhm.
first of all the provinces coming together, which is something that is happening now around the Redemptorist world, and it's
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
that will happen to us in the vice province of Malaysia and Singapore in the next 2 or 3 years time. But also that you looked around at the big setup that you had in different places and felt that you needed to let that go
Yeah.
so that something new could come out. This is really very interesting to listen to.
And it's painful. It was
Mm,
not easy.
mm.
You need a tough superior that that says, I'm, I'm not going to listen to all your pain, but I'm going to see, because he said we have to see for the people who are not here at the moment, for the young people to come, and they
Mhm.
too deserve something new.
Yeah.
But I think even that, hearing the older conferers, because we have closed the old convents and we brought them into new buildings where there is care for the elder people and so on, and they're happy now. But it was a change. It was a change.
Mm.
You have to
Yes.
understand how unique our project in the Belgian church is. In the dioceses of Ghent, in the last 3 years, there were about 20 churches were closed and sold, of trying to sold. In my own parish, we have now 6 smaller parishes, and 3 churches we closed and sold. And the Redemptorist, then the only one in the last years who built a new church. We had even problems to find architects who could still build churches
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
because they're used to close them, need to build them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. Perhaps looking
Fascinating.
towards the future, maybe that's something that we can reflect about. That has there been anyone that came to any of you and say that, oh, I would like to consider this life, or I would like to know more about the Redemptorist? Do you all get any such inquiries?
To be honest, no.
Oh.
So I was the last one to join the Redemptorists, and that's
Mhm.
almost 30 years ago. So I haven't got any inquiries.
Mhm.
Um, and I think, first of all, it's necessary that people see a community, so we're working on that. Secondly, I'm as happy with partners in mission.
Mhm.
We have partners in mission coming to us.
Mhm.
I'm as happy as that also with people who would join for the religious life.
Mhm.
And if people would join for the religious life, they would not join for religious life in Ghent or in Belgium, but in Northwestern Europe or in Europe at all. So they have to be very open and see that they're not coming to do a certain work. So
Yeah.
I think at the moment it's difficult for young people. They have to have a vision that reaches further than what they can see at this moment. I
Mhm.
think that's important.
Mm. And are
But
there vocations to other religious congregations or to the diocesan priesthood?
I have to say very few. I don't know the
Mm.
numbers. I know that in the diocese we live in, there should be one vocation I've heard, but that's quite new because for the last 10 years I don't think there was an ordination. Oh yeah, one ordination, but it was somebody who came from Mexico. So
Mm.
it's very poor in Belgium at the moment. We're
Mhm.
talking about, I think, 1 or 2 ordinations in the whole country in a year. For
Mm.
all religious, as far as I can know, might be 3 ordinations, but so very few.
Yeah.
If you consider it's a population of more than 10 million people, so yeah.
And that
And
would be a
that's quite the
situation not
same in
so.
Germany. Yeah.
Mhm.
Mm.
Oh,
Mm. I was going to
okay.
say for many parts of Northern Europe,
Yeah,
uh, that would be the case. Yeah, the
Mhm.
Netherlands, many parts of France as well.
yeah,
Mhm.
completely. It
Mm.
doesn't mean I'm pessimistic. It sounds
Yep.
pessimistic, but I'm not pessimistic at all. Less
Yeah.
than I used to be. For me, the last 20 years, things have been changing for the good.
Mhm.
I believe that the church at the moment is being renewed. It will take time. It will take another 20 years, but things are changing, and God doesn't give up. So that's a good thing.
Okay.
But I
That's
have no idea
incredible,
how it will
Eve, how you have that sense
continue.
of enthusiasm and hope for the future.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
incredible.
And I have this because of the Redemptorists worldwide. When I read
Yeah.
what our congregation is writing, all the text, all the renewal things, I'm very happy, and this is really prophetic. And so I feel very much supported by the general government and by all the people working and sharing their views in our congregation, and also by all the experiments there are. And it's just for the openness we can experience in our
Yeah.
congregation. That's my view on it. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
I love to really continue our conversation. In fact, we can still continue right after the official recording. But uh, I think as a way for us to kind of wrap this up, maybe as what Eve you have mentioned of the reality, and in fact, I mean, around the world is very different realities, but
Mhm.
many people are seeing changes, especially in the church, in wherever place that we are living. Maybe just a final question to the both of you: what would you say to any of the people in any part of the world that are considering a religious life, especially perhaps they are interested in the Redemptorists in our work? What would you say to them, or any encouragement, or something that you want to share in terms of wisdom?
If I can give some wisdom, is yeah, just be humble. Just be humble. If you want to join the religious life, you're going into something great, but do it with a humble heart, and you will discover a lot. We can learn so much from other people, and we can learn from God. So for me, it's important to continue to listen to God and to see how He's guiding us. Maybe not in the way I thought He was going to do it, but probably He knows better.
All right, thank you, Eve, and
Yeah,
Andreas.
Andre.
I must think of a word Karl Rahner, the German theologian of the last century, said, the Christian of the future must be a mystique of, or he is not at all. Uh, so if somebody is joining us, you have to bring of you find his own spiritual standing. It's the structures are not as helpful as they used to be. So and don't expect that the structures are helping you, not only by the Redemptorist as a parish priest also, and so that's the question. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, Terence, here in Malaysia and Singapore, we are already starting to deal with some of the changes that are happening in church, a growing secularism here, and perhaps growing up, say, in the 1990s when I was a teenager. Uh, Churches were still full. Young people were in church. All of my best friends were from church youth ministry and all that. And that's starting to change now. And young people today have a very, very different experience. And
Hmm.
we're starting to struggle with perhaps the changes that were happening in Europe in the 70s and 80s are taking place
Yeah,
now in Asia.
that's true. Anyway, I think we can just end our episode today in a hopeful note. After hearing from Eve and from Andreas, it kind of like tells us that although things are changing, is just different. It doesn't mean that it is worse or perhaps maybe better, but it's different, and is perhaps is a call for us to rely more on the spirit, and to allow God to lead us to wherever He would like us to go on an adventure. So anyway, so we thank Eve and Andreas very much. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
all the good work that you are doing over there in Belgium, and I will definitely be coming to see you very soon. And I hope
Hmm.
that one day we can invite you to come to here to Singapore to perhaps
Yeah.
bring your experiences and bring some new insights to our people here. I'm sure the people here will be very excited to see all of you, and of course, bring your beer.
Yes, yes. But yeah, we love to
Uh,
come to Singapore. We have seen already you shared some of the beautiful things that are happening in the Novena Church, and
Thank
we
you.
really love to come and visit this and to see what's happening over there. Thank you very much,
Okay.
and also for
All
this
right.
And it's the
talk. I love it
75th
very much.
anniversary of the church next year,
Next
and it
year.
might
Next
be a
year,
good time. Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
wow.
Yep.
and Terence, let me finish with something you gave us.
Oh,
Oh
okay.
yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I think yeah, the people here will
I
really
don't know
love it.
how it sounds over the software, so. Geef mijn hart aan u, o Heer Jezus. Geef mijn hart aan u, o Heer Jezus. Ook al stormt het in mijn leven, u bent altijd dicht bij mij. Heel mijn leven volg ik u, Jezus. Vader Abba, ja, ik ben uw kind. Ik wil leven zoals u dat verlangt. Vader Abba, ja, ik ben uw kind. Laat mijn leven vol
van u.
liefde zijn.
Woohoo! Okay, so that is Ku Mau Cita Yesus. I actually
Yeah,
introduced that to them during the retreat, and they translated. I think
into
that's a
Dutch.
German
Dutch.
version.
No,
Yeah,
that's a
The
oh,
Dutch
it's a
version.
Dutch
Flemish,
version, a
Dutch
Flemish
Flemish
version.
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 Okay,
Yep.
all right, okay. So anyway, we definitely hope that you can come here one day to perform that to us live. And for now, thank you very much, and God blessed. All right.
Thank you, Andres and
God
Eve.
bless you all. Keep up the good
Wonderful
work.
talking to you today.
Okay. Bye
Thank
bye.
you, Jared, Terence. Good to see you.
All right, welcome back, and I hope all of you enjoy that very lively interview with Eve and Andreas, two very remarkable confreres, two redemptorists that I'm very proud of. Before we move on to anything else, I have to just make this clarification or correction. Right after the interview, Eve straight away reminded me that he is, in fact, not the director of Clement Sport. Actually, they have a very interesting system. They have hired a lay by the name of Ilsa, a very wonderful lady, and she is the director of Clement Sport. So she is the director of the whole place over there, and Eve is just there, just kind of like the liaison person. So he wanted that to be made very clear to our listeners. So beyond that,
Okay.
okay. So Gerard, like
Hmm.
uh, in this interview, did you find anything specifically inspiring or something that stand out for you? Something that struck you?
Well, almost every topic that we spoke about, it gauged my interest. But I'll pick up one on vocations, because they both were
Mhm.
felt called to the Redemptorist way of life when they were very young,
Mm,
and then went through what I would say would be a typical experience of coming to the vocation, similar to what I went through as well. Eve is only joined the congregation 3 years before I did. So they went through the youth group, they experienced the parish mission, and both of them said they were searching for community. I think Andreas used the words, they did everything together as a team. I can completely relate with that in my own attraction to the Redemptorists. But especially for Eve, I think I really must admire his resilience and perseverance. To join a community that was really aging, that was not living together much in community anymore, because that's what he came for, and also that the mission also was declining at that time. When I entered the Redemptorists in 1998, uh, Novena Church, as it still is now, is a thriving place, and so I get excited and say, okay, I don't mind joining this group. But for him, what does he see as his future? And it looks also like as if a lot of his formation was done alone. He was sent to Leuven to study, and then he got ordained. So it's
Yeah.
not easy being in that situation, because maybe I found
Yes.
myself for 1 or 2 years living like that. But for him to push through the whole thing, I think it's amazing.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think, yeah, he has a very admirable character. I had some opportunity to really talk to him and to understand his whole disposition. And one thing that he has also mentioned in the interview that I perhaps would like to highlight, he mentioned that although he was describing the reality, he said that he was not pessimistic about it. Sometimes we might have to ask, like, how can a person not be pessimistic when the reality is like that? But you can see that he looked at it very uh, optimistically. He has this almost like a very Christian hope,
Mm,
a very deep sense of Christian hope towards the whole reality. He just see a lot of perhaps things that we see as challenges, he see as opportunities. So he see
mm,
um, as ways for him to perhaps explore and see how they can have new ways of actually living out the faith and still continuing that work of evangelizing. So I think that is very admirable. Um, Definitely here in Malaysia and Singapore, we are not at that space, and hopefully we will never reach that kind of reality. But I think that it is something that we also have to perhaps try to um, have it as a kind of attitude for us to always see any challenge as also opportunities, anything that is um, changing, not as something that is pessimistic, something that makes us pessimistic, but something that we can actually look at it in a more optimistic way, and to just use that to try to reflect on new ways of sharing the
mm.
good news. So yeah,
Was
that's
that
something
what
that
what's that
really
what
struck.
struck you the most? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, in fact,
Mm,
yeah, that was really very much something that I felt very deeply, and especially that is also something that I was exploring when I was studying over there. I was trying to, it was you who gave me the assignment to say, to go and figure out what is the new way of evangelizing, the most effective way of evangelizing to the people in our context, in our current situation. And these are the things that I felt that at least that kind of attitude is something that is very important. We need to use that as an anchor, so that in whatever that we do, we try to do it with a lot of positive energy, with a lot of hope, a lot of Christian hope, and we look at things, or as always, as the with the Holy Spirit, anything can be possible. So I think that's a very
mm.
important thing that we all should have.
Well, you certainly took up that task very well and did excellently. I enjoyed reading your thesis. There was something else
Okay.
that Eve says, that struck me in line with what you had shared. He believes that the church is being renewed at this time. So it's not
Mhm.
that the church is dying, but we need this space away from being this huge cultural juggernaut.
Mhm.
Church is almost being humbled, almost being sent on a retreat,
Yeah.
a silent retreat. And in some way, something is happening during this silent time for the church to rise again. It will not look the same as before, but it will come out purified.
Yeah.
Amazing, wonderful, wonderful.
Yeah, so in fact, a lot of all these points can actually be used as another point for us to discuss in our future episodes. So maybe we'll just put a pin
Okay.
at there, and we just move on because there are quite a few activities that's going to come in August. Let's just share with our listeners, and I think this is going to be quite a lengthy episode, so I'm just conscious about the time. All right,
Sure.
so let's just move on with what is going to happen for the rest of the month of August. All right, so Gerard, do you want to start off?
Okay, very quickly, the 15th of August is the Feast of the Assumption. And just to remember, the evening masses will be at 7:30, both on the day itself, the 15th, and the Vigil Mass on the 14th, Mass at 7:30, not at 6:30.
Okay,
Terence,
and
they have two other events coming up after that.
yeah. So the day after that, which is on the Friday, on the 16th of August, this is our regular monthly Taizé moment. So we are inviting all those who just like to end their week, start their weekend with a bit of a calming and prayerful mode. So please come and join us with our Taizé evening on Friday, the 16th of August. And on that Sunday, this is something that I am very excited about. We are going to have this special event called the Migrants Reality and Our Faith. It is an afternoon event on Sunday, 2 to 5. We are basically inviting especially the locals, mostly the locals, to come and understand a little bit more about the migrant reality here in Singapore. Oftentimes, when we talk about the migrants, we have a kind of a stereotype understanding of who are the migrants and what the migrants are doing. But I think if we really go into the reality, there's a lot more to discover, and especially to try to look at it as from the angle of our faith. What do our faith tells us in terms of um, interacting with migrants and how we can reach out to them, how we can welcome them to be part of our faith community. So I think there's a lot to explore, and we have planned out a very interesting afternoon with some input, with some activities, with some reflection. So we really invite anyone who are interested to come and join us. We will put the information in the show notes, and hopefully also the um, information on how you can register for this event. So because of our activities, we need to limit the numbers. So we do invite everyone to who are interested to sign up before coming for the event. Okay, so it's on the 18th of August in the afternoon from 2 to 5 p.m.
Sounds
All
interesting.
right.
Okay. And the big event of the year is coming up very soon. And that's, of course, the annual Novena procession. That one everybody knows, 6 p.m. on the first Sunday of September. But before that, we also have a Triduum, and the Triduum has some special themes, and it's done a little bit differently this year. Terence, you would know more about this than I do.
Okay. Let me start off. So the annual procession this year is on 1st of September, which is the first Sunday, and it just happens to be 1st of September. And the Wednesday, Thursday, Friday before that Sunday is our Triduum. Now we're starting off on Wednesday on the 28th of August with the family evening. All right. So this is an evening where we would like to invite family to come together to celebrate together, and we are going to have, of course, mass, but activities that focus more on a family, how we can come together, how we can worship together, how we can grow together. So we do invite everyone to come, and please come, especially as a family. Now, the day after that, I would like to talk about that also, because on the 29th of August, which is a Thursday, and that is a very interesting event which I am spearheading. We are calling it the Candlelight Evening. So this was being inspired by an event that I've done in Ireland. Anyway, long story short, for that evening, we're inviting everyone to come into the church. We are going to light the church up with as many candles as we can. All right. So it's going to, when you come in, I hope that the church will look very magical. But we want to use that evening to just invite everyone to kind of calm down. The society, the world, everything is so fast paced and so noisy. So that evening is just even in between our procession activities, we want everyone to say, hey, maybe this is a time for us to all just come down to spend this very special, intimate moment with God, and to really draw strength from the blessings of God, and to perhaps uh, have that have that moment to just say have that very intimate conversation with God, and so that we can be strengthened to continue with all our daily activities in our lives, and even in the church. So that is a very special day on the 29th of August, Thursday evening, 7:30. So please come and join that event. Do you want to take the final event on
Okay.
Friday?
Yes. So here's a change from years past. On the third day of the Triduum, we will have the youth rally. So normally that used to be held the day after the procession, but this year we're trying something new and bringing the rally into the third day of the Triduum. So we'll start with Mass as usual at 7:30 p.m., but immediately after the Mass, we'll begin the rally. And there's actually many things happening the whole afternoon. There's going to be a carnival, and then there are food trucks where people can get something to eat. And then there'll also be a flea market. So you've got all kinds of artists, artisans, companies coming to sell their goods and wares. So you can get Christian items, devotional items, as well as clothes and anything lah under the
Okay.
sun, jewelry or whatever.
Basically a pasar malam lah.
Pasar malam, okay, yeah, we'll
Yeah.
turn the place into
A
Geylang
pasar
Serai.
pagi.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that goes
Yes.
on until 7:30, and then we start the mass, and then the rally goes on immediately after that. So there'll be praise and worship music, there will be skits, there will be a time of preaching, it's breaking the word, a time of adoration. Uh, so really inviting all people, young and old. We've put out
Mhm.
invitations to all the Catholic schools, so we hope that a lot of
Yeah.
young people are going to come. But it's open to anybody. Yeah, anybody can
Yes.
can
Yes.
come. But the themes are very youthful. We're all
Mm.
children of God, and the theme for the rally is the missing piece. So we all experience something empty or missing in our lives. And so what are we searching for? And that's the theme that we want to take up. And even
Okay.
after the rally finishes, there's still makan available, and there's still some music going on
There's going to be
around
live
the.
band also. So
Yeah,
yeah,
that's right. Yeah,
makan under the stars.
that's
Yeah.
right.
So just enjoy some food under the beautiful stars.
Wonderful.
Well, yeah, I think that is all, and for our listeners to remember that all this interesting activities, they are all to gear towards the annual procession on the 1st of September. So don't forget to come for our annual procession on 1st of September, in honor of our mother, to thank her for all the blessings, or for accompanying us all this while. And also, if you have not already done so, please go and send in the consecration of your families.
Mm,
This
mm,
is a special
mm.
time where we are also consecrating all our families to our mother, asking her to continue to intercede for all of us. So yeah, if you have not already done so, please put in your names of your families into a special box, or I think you can do it online. All right. Anyway,
Mhm.
so you have all the information in our social media. All right.
And
So we're
so
going to
many
put all
people have
the
done this
yes.
procession for decades already. I think they know
Yeah,
better than
yeah.
us what to do.
Exactly. All
Yeah,
right. So you get, yeah, and you'll come and see the floral wall and all the interesting
yeah,
stuff
all usual thing.
during that
Yeah.
time. Yes. So, anyway, we will see you again after the annual procession. But until then, so just enjoy your life, be safe, and God bless.
Take care. God bless everyone. Thanks for joining
All
us.
right. Bye bye.
Bye bye.